Hey everyone, Steven here, and welcome to my little library of horrors. Well, it's been a little while since we last spoke. Life's been kind of busy, I guess. April is my son's birthday, so there was a lot of planning for that, and not much time for book hunting, honestly. So, um, yeah. Plus, just mental health issues and all of that kind of stuff. But back at it again. And, I have been working on a video as well, and it's just taking a lot more research than I thought it was going to, and I'm happy with that. That's okay, because in the process, I'm learning a lot myself. So I'm definitely excited to try and get that out to you guys as soon as I can. But like I said, the research is long and arduous, but it'll be totally worth it once I'm able to get it out. But anyway, yeah, it's been a little while since I've actually been able to go out and hunt. Like I said, life being busy, money, all that good stuff. But recently, a place near me was having a book sale, and yeah, they said hundreds of books to choose from. And when I go to these sales, I really don't expect much, to be honest. I find you'll find tons of King and Kuntz and the very odd McCammon, maybe even a Ketchum, very rarely or anything, but I went in with very little expectations, and yeah, to say I was pleasantly surprised would be a vast understatement. Um, so yeah, I went yesterday, and I walked away with about 77 books, I think it was. About 77 books I walked away with yesterday. So then today I woke up and I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll go back just to make sure I had, maybe they restocked, maybe there was some stuff I didn't see or something. So I went back today, and again, no expectations whatsoever. Ended up walking away with over another 30 books in total. So I ended up with, geez, I think it was like around 110 books altogether. Not all horror, a good 90% of it is, but yeah, there's a lot to get through in here. So I think what I'm going to start off with is the non-horror stuff first, just because, I know that's why you guys come here for those, but I like to show off some other stuff anyway. But so let's get started. So the first ones I grabbed were these two right here, The Return of Tarzan by Edgar Rice Burroughs. Now, I've never read any Tarzan myself, but I know my dad is really into Tarzan. Or he said when he was a kid, this was his favorite books to read was Tarzan and westerns and stuff like that. So I kind of picked these up just because they remind me of my dad, and we don't bond on anything, so it's kind of nice to just feel like, I don't know, maybe I get a little bit inside of his mind with these. I'm curious as to what really the difference is. They both seem to be, they're both printed by Ballantine Books. They're both called The Return of Tarzan. They're number 2 in the series for both, so I really don't know. This one says authorized edition, and this one says the only authorized edition, complete and unabridged. So, I don't know. If anyone in the comments is more versed in the world of Tarzan, feel free to let me know. I'd really appreciate it. Like I said, just because it's not horror doesn't mean I don't like to learn about them. So, yeah, those were always pretty cool. Let me see here. Next up, I picked up because it is co-authored by Whitley Strieber, and this is called Nature's End. And the other author is James Kunetka. Yeah, end of the world story. And funny enough, this takes place in the year 2025. So next year, apparently, let's see what's going to be happening to us. Starvation will be rampant. City dwellers will gasp for breath under blackened skies. And tottering on the brink of environmental collapse, the world may be ending. I mean, excuse me. Excuse me. Not vastly out of the way, to be honest. I mean, if you really think about it, look how expensive food is right now. It's crazy. Obviously air pollution has always been a bit of an issue and things like that. So, but yeah, pick this up because of the Strieber name, but I love a good apocalypse story, so I'll eventually end up checking that out. Next up, was definitely a cover by, and that is Divine Endurance by Gwyneth Jones. Very cool cover. And apparently Divine Endurance is the name of the cat on the cover. But yeah, super cool cover. I really liked it. Decided to grab it. Next up we have The Child Buyer by John Hersey. Pretty cool cover. Sounds pretty... Excuse me. Sounds pretty interesting. And the little tag on the back says the most prophetically alarming work since Orwell's 1984. And that's kind of what really sold me on it, because I love 1984. I think it's a fantastic book. It still holds, very well today. So, yeah, pretty cool. Cool title, cover, everything, honestly. Next up, I picked up Doll by Ed McBain. Now, I know he writes a lot more thrillers, I believe. There was a ton of his books there, but like I said, I don't really hear his name too often, or at all when it comes to horror, so I don't think he writes it. But, pretty sweet cover, to be honest. It was definitely a cover by on this one. Yeah. Let's see what we got next here. I gotta make sure these piles are nice and evenly stacked, or else it's gonna be... Yeah. Next up is Tyrannosaur by David Drake. And yeah, this was, again, cover by, looked pretty cool. It's really hard to go wrong with dinosaurs. Just looked pretty sick, honestly. Let's see. The next two I picked up are Dragon Flight and Dragon Quest by Anne McCaffrey. And these are the first two books in the Dragon Riders of Pern series. Now, I read, it was Dragon's Blood back when I was, I think, 13 or 14. And still one of my favorite books ever. So I had no idea it was part of a series or anything like that. But, I loved the story. I thought it was so cool. It had dragons and everything. So it really, the series kind of holds a special place in my heart, regardless that I've read only one book. But maybe one day I'll start the series, I don't know. I'm not huge on series. I feel like that's a really big commitment. But who knows? Let's see. Next up, I picked up this here. And this is Marvel Superheroes Wolverine, Night of the Wolverine. Now, I usually pick up Marvel books when I see them, mainly to sell, honestly. But I've been starting to keep them more, honestly. And, yeah, apparently this is like a Dungeons and Dragons version, a Marvel version of Dungeons and Dragons, excuse me. But yeah, they go for roughly around $20-$25 a pop, so, I was pretty psyched when I saw this. Didn't know it at the time, but I was like, oh, I'll pick it up. I always pick up the Marvel stuff now. And, speak of the devil, the next two I picked up are some Spider-Man books. Wanted, Dead or Alive, and let's see here, Spider-Man and the Incredible Hulk and Doomsday. So yeah, pretty cool. Let's see, next up, Silmarillion by Tolkien. Haven't read this one. I've read the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I've read The Hobbit. And, yeah, I will eventually read this one. I'm really hoping that, it doesn't follow the same kind of anticlimactic battles that tend to happen within Lord of the Rings. I'll try not to spoil anything if you haven't read it, but, yeah. As much as I did enjoy The Hobbit, one of the worst climaxes in a book ever. I'm sorry. That was just pathetic. But, anyway, next up, I picked up Hook by Terry Brooks. So yeah, so now we're starting to get into the movie novelizations that I picked up. Again, I've started recently collecting them, as I've noticed they're starting to become more and more obscure, more in demand. And, Plus, I just think they're kind of cool, you know? So, definitely pretty cool to have found that. The next one is The Rocketeer. You know, for all you kaiju fans out there. Let's see. Yep, it's written by Peter David and based on the comic book series Rocketeer. So yeah, pretty cool. Was never a huge King Kong Godzilla fan, honestly, but I can appreciate them. I definitely can appreciate them. Next up, I picked up Superman 3. Here we go, and this was written by William Kotzwinkle. Pretty sick last name, if I'm going to be honest. But I'm not a Superman fan at all. Like, I know, there's an argument for him and all that. I don't know. I just find him, like, really boring, to be honest. But I'm not going to get on a tangent on that. But let's see. Next up, I picked up the Batman novelization. Definitely pretty sick. Classic Nicholson Joker. I'm more of a Ledger guy, but, you know, that's, again, another debate for a video that I will never make. That has been run into the ground, and I want no part of it. You know, as vicious as sometimes fans of the horror community can be when it comes to opinions, comic book fans are rabid. Let's see. Next up, I picked up E.T. Classic film, obviously. But, yeah. Next is Dick Tracy. I believe I actually have, like, a comic collection, too. It's, like, some of the newspaper, like, a collection of the newspaper comics. I have to take a look for it. I know it's around here somewhere, but there's a lot of stuff around here somewhere. Let's see. I thought I grabbed 2 copies of this, didn't I? I'm sure I did. I don't know where I put it, though. Anyway, next up is Scanners. I've actually never seen the movie, but I always see that that GIF constantly posted where, like, that guy's head's exploding or whatever, so I do know of that scene. But, yeah, pretty cool to have found the novelization. I think I found 2 copies, like I said. I don't know where I put it, honestly. Let's see. Next up is the novelization of Batman Returns. So, yeah, a couple of Batman novelizations there. I don't think I've ever seen Batman Returns, to be honest. I wasn't super into superheroes when I was a kid. And, so yeah, I just never went out of my way to really watch it. But anyway, next up is Close Encounters of the Third Kind by Steven Spielberg. And again, there's 2 different versions here. There's this one here. And then there's this one that kind of has the little step back cover going on here. So yeah, pretty interesting. You know, I think it's kind of weird for a novelization to have 2 different versions, I guess. But hey. Speaking of 2 different versions, another copy of E.T. Okay. Let's see. Next up, we have Back to the Future 3. Again, wasn't a big fan of Back to the Future. I wasn't really into sci-fi as a kid. Like I said, that really just wasn't my scene. I've gotten more into it as I've gotten older. I've learned to appreciate it more. But as a kid, it just wasn't for me. It was never something that appealed to me. And then last for our novelizations, we have The Goat, Batman Forever. Unfortunately, not pictured is the lack of Batman nipples. But, yeah, I think this was the one. Or am I thinking of something else? Like I said, I'm not super well versed in the movies for that, but yeah, so that takes care of the non-horror section. Now, let's get started to where you all came for. So let's see. Okie dokie. So, first up, I found this first edition of The Shining. Got that nice mirror cover to it. Does unfortunately have a little bit of water damage to it. I already have a copy myself, though, that's in much better condition. But, you know, this is just getting increasingly more rare, so, yeah, couldn't pass it up. Next up, I found Ball by Robert McCammon. Pretty sure this was his debut novel. Still haven't read it. I don't know. I've heard people say that it's like one of those books where it's like, yeah, you can tell that was like his first real major novel, so. I mean, but again, I loved almost everything else I've read by him, so like, I kind of have a good expectation when going into his work now, so. Let's see. Next up, I picked up No Sanctuary by Richard Lehman. Okay. So this I actually found 2 copies of, so among the tables of books, there were boxes underneath, and I usually never check the boxes. They're just crammed, and there's never anything good in them, anything like that, but something told me, you know what, I'm doing really well so far, I should probably just check the boxes. And I'm really happy I did, because, well, I found this. The Nightmares on Elm Street. Novelizations of Part 4 and Part 5 of the Nightmare on Elm Street series. And I found 2 copies. So, like, these are, like, not as rare as, like, Friday the 13th and Halloween novelizations, but it's starting to climb up there. Like, the copy of this alone is going for almost $60 at this point. So, to have found 2, I mean, I was, like, I couldn't hold my excitement while I was searching through books. Thankfully, I was among like-minded people that were like, you know, love books and everything. So I was just like, oh my god. You know, I didn't seem too weird. But, yeah. Next, we have 11 Great Horror Stories, including The Oblong Box and The Dunwich Horror. And I have no idea who published this, as a matter of fact. Selected and edited by Betty M. Owen. There we go. Pretty cool. Yeah, let's see who's in here, actually. What stories are in here? Obviously, Lovecraft, because we have the Dunwich Horror. Let's see, we have Jack Finney, L.P. Hartley, The Oblong Box by Edgar Allan Poe, Gerald Kirsch, Bram Stoker, The Judge's House, cool. John Collier, A.E. Sandiling, Anthony Verso. Let's see, E. Everett Evans, and Fielden Hughes. Pretty neat. Lovecraft and Stoker and Poe in one collection. Not bad. Not bad at all. Let's see. Next we have Lowland Rider by Chet Williamson. Featured in Paperbacks from Hell. Which is a double for me. Next is The Well by Jack Cady. Caddy. Not really sure how to pronounce it. But definitely a great condition copy. I can finally update, swap out the one I've had for a couple years now, because this is in much better condition. Let's see. Next up is The Alchemist by Leslie H. Whitten. I actually just acquired this in a trade recently with my buddy Harry, so... yeah, this one is thankfully in much better condition. Not that I'm complaining about the condition Harry traded me, you know. I mean, he was nice enough to trade it to me. I'm not going to complain. So, but it is nice to have a much better condition copy now. This one was actually a find from today. And that's The Elementals by Michael McDowell. Yeah, I snagged this one up really fast. And, yeah, this is one book I recommend in my beginner's guide to reading horror. So, yeah, if you haven't checked that video out, definitely go check it out. You know, I think I've got some really nice suggestions in there if, you know, you're happening to just kind of stumble across this video and maybe want to check out some horror books. This is a great ghost story if you want to check it out. Highly recommend. Next up is She Wakes by Jack Ketchum. Always gotta grab Ketchum when I see him. Next up is Necromancer by Robert Holdstock, which I was really shocked to find, honestly. Like, this was one I had to buy online because I saw it, and it was a great deal. I'd never heard of it before at the time, and it was just something I personally felt like I was never going to find in the wild. But, goes to show what I know, huh? Patience is key. I always say that. When you're collecting, patience. Always have patience. Let's see. Next up is Island by Peter Benchley, which I think is actually a better condition one than I have now. Matter of fact, let me check. I have Island right here. I'm not quite sure, honestly. But I'll figure that out another time. Next up, Cover by Jack Ketchum. Again, Harry traded me this in our latest trade, but his was a signed copy, which I'm, again, eternally grateful for. So, yeah, now I have a reader copy. Gonna get my autograph copy bagged up and put away. Next up, Amityville Horror by Jay Anson. Yeah, like I said, I think I read this a couple years ago, and pretty outrageous, to be totally honest, even as far as, like, ghost stories are concerned. It wasn't bad, but, like, there are some parts where, like, you really had to suspend disbelief, like, a lot. Next up is The Illustrated Man by Ray Bradbury. Which is funny, as this guy would probably fit right in today's society, huh? Not that I ever mind tattoos at all, you know. I've got my own. But, yeah, pretty cool. Again, I will always pick up Bradbury when I see it. Found a copy of Effigies by William K. Wells. Again, this was one I ended up buying online because I just genuinely didn't think I was going to find the paperback version. But, here it is. The copy I have is in better condition anyway, but still. Let's see. Next I have The Night of the Moonbow by Thomas Tryon. Found 2 copies. And I already own a copy anyway, so... Which I think would make this 4 copies in total? Hey, trade bait. Always gotta have trade bait. Let's see. Next I have The Waiting Room by T.M. Wright. They had 2 copies, so I made sure to pick up both. You know. Looks pretty interesting. I mean, I can think of, you know, few worse things than waiting in a waiting room. Let's see. Next, I picked up The Wild by Whitley Strieber. Yeah, lots and lots of Strieber this haul, so I'm really excited about that. Let's see what we have next. Speak of the Stryber. Unholy Fire by Whitley Strieber. It's funny, I actually just posted a little snippet on the Night Shift Horror group over on Facebook, and my buddy Corey was like, funny you posted this, because I just saw this at a bookstore, and he's like, I was going to grab it. And he stopped by and grabbed it, so pretty cool. Let's see. Next up, we have Flesh Gothic by Edward Lee, which I think I already have a copy of. Let's see. Ooh, this is a good one. Next up is Siren by Linda Crockett Gray. Beautiful cover. Really, really gorgeous cover, and it's in immaculate condition, almost unread, I think. Like, yeah, the spine is I mean, just look at that. Not any cracks in the spine at all. So that's a great one. Picked up another copy of The Illustrated Man by Bradbury. Let's see. Beast Stalker by James V. Smith Jr. Pretty cool. Which I believe is the sequel to Beast Maker. Next up, we have Strange Seed by T.M. Wright. Pretty awesome cover. Next up is Catacombs by John Farris. Really happy to add another Farris to the collection. I've been slowly building up his bibliography in my library. Still haven't read anything by him, but, there's time to get there. Next up is The Werewolf of Paris by Guy Endore. This one definitely looks pretty interesting. Pretty sure this was a movie, if I'm not mistaken. I know there was the Werewolf in American Werewolf in London. But is there a Werewolf of Paris movie? I feel like there was. Let's see. Next up is Ghosts of Night and Morning by Marvin Kaye. Really love the cover. Like I said, that like almost like a cerulean blue, I think. It's always a really nice color on these covers. Let's see. Next up, we have The Feast of All Saints by Anne Rice. And I don't think I've ever seen this one before, honestly. Like, I've seen Vampire Lestat, Queen of the Damned, Interview with a Vampire, the one that starts with a V. Can't remember. But yeah, I've seen a lot of her books, but I've never seen this one before. So I'm definitely excited to add that to the collection. Let's see. Next up, we have Oasis by Brian Hodge. Unfortunately, got a little hole punch in the cover there, which is super odd to me. Like, why in the world would you hole punch a book? Like, especially the cover. I don't know. That blows my mind. And because it reminds me of like a used bookstore back where I used to live, Read More Books. They would always hole punch the back of the book cover, and I'm just like, why? It just doesn't make any sense. It just ruins the book. I don't understand the point, but anyway. Next up is The Watcher Within by William Apple. Or Appel, or however you want to say it. Simplistic, but effective. I love the font, and I love how the title kind of like works with the image instead of hinders it. So definitely pretty interesting. Alrighty, next up we have Nightmare by Cornell Woolrich. Looks pretty cool. Not familiar with the author or any of his works. This one I've never heard of. Don't know the author. Never seen the book mentioned anywhere. But when I saw it, I'm like, wow, this is a badass cover. And this is called It's Loose by Warner Lee. Just look at that cover. That is awesome. That is like super cool. Like, definitely kind of gives me some Wendigo vibes. I don't know if anyone's played The Quarry. If you have, like, then you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But yeah, super cool. Let's see. Next up is called The Mask of Cthulhu by August Derleth. And it's stories of eldritch terror based on the concepts of H.P. Lovecraft. Really, really interesting cover. Love that. Pretty awesome. Next up, the classic Dracula by Bram Stoker. A version I don't have, but one I'm very excited to add to my collection. It's got those nice blue-hued edges there. Love that. Let's see. When was this published? Looks like 1977. Pretty interesting. Let's see. Here's the other copy of Nightmares. And I have another copy of the 11 horror stories. Great horror stories. So let's see. Next up we have The Anthrax Mutation by Alan Scott. With its original title was Project Dracula. So yeah. Pretty cool. Oh, this one I was psyched to find, because this is another one I really didn't think I was going to find out in the wild, but like, I saw it and I was like, oh my god, yes. And that is Condor by Graham Masterson. Look at this absolutely gorgeous cover. Like, it is absurd, but it is freaking sweet. Like, it is just so cool. Yeah, I mean, like, the concept is absurd, the cover is crazy, but, like, you know, it was one of those, like, it's one of those Masterson works that I knew, like, as soon as I first saw it, it was one I knew I had to have, so I'm really excited to have that in the collection now. Let's see, next up we have House Infernal by Edward Lee. Oop, excuse me, everybody. Sorry about that. My youngest was walking around downstairs and she should be in bed, so I had to make sure she didn't destroy anything. But anyway, next up is a really interesting book. Again, it's another one I've never heard of, haven't heard of the author, never seen the cover or anything. And I couldn't even find any recently sold listings on eBay, so hopefully one of you can help me out with it. And that book is called Limbo by Jan Lara. Really cool cover. Love the cover. But like I said, I've never seen it talked about before. Never seen the cover, the author. No postings on eBay or anything that I can find. So, yeah, definitely pretty cool. Let's see. Next up is Adam by Ted Dekker. I know he's definitely lesser known in the horror community. At least to me, like I never see people recommend his work, talk about his books or anything. I think I only have like one other book by him, which is it's somewhere up there. But yeah, glad to add another one to the collection at least. You know, just because I haven't heard of him doesn't mean he's bad. Let's see. Next up, I picked up two gothic horror romances, and those are Terror in the Town by Edward S. Ahrens. And Lady in the Mist by Teresa Charles. This one I'm not 100% sure may be a horror book, but the back of it makes it sound like it. But, yeah. Oh, so, again, this one, when I told myself, hey, you should go through the boxes, you might find something good. The first box I open, literally sitting dead center on top of the pile of books, is this. And I literally, was just like, I audibly gasped. I was like, what? And I was actually talking to another collector there. He wasn't a horror collector. He was into fantasy, but, we were like, oh, man, look what I found, And I was like, dude, you want to talk about a holy grail find? Boom. April Fool's Day by Jeff Rovin. I honestly still can't believe I found this. This is in my hands and I didn't pay an arm and a leg for it. So, yeah, this is definitely going to be a very, very prized possession in my collection. I am so shocked I found this. And it's in great condition. Again, it looks almost completely unread. I mean, like I said, thank goodness I checked those boxes. Next up is Joyride by Jack Ketchum. And this is actually a Ketchum I didn't have. So again, I was thrilled not only to find a Ketchum, but one I don't have in my collection. So that's a win-win. So, yeah. Very excited. I want to get to this. I really want to get to this. I heard this is one of his better ones, so I absolutely want to get to it. Let's see. Next up, I picked up Night Games by Marilyn Harris. Pretty cool cover. Next up is a book I actually just posted on my Instagram today at Little Library of Horrors. Let's see. That is The Bloodstone by Ken Yulo. I have no idea. Again, I try my best. I really do. But, no matter how many books you read, they don't really have names like that all the time. But, yeah, this comes with this really gorgeous step back cover. Wonderful step back art. Let's see. Next up is Razor's Song by Joe Moninger. That's a weird name to try and say. Next up is Kane by Douglas Borton. Definitely a super cool cover. I really like it. Plug from King is always nice too. For some reason I feel like it's a movie. But I mean, again, I could be completely wrong. I don't know. It kind of gives off the movie vibes. But yeah. Let's see. Next up is Thorn by Fred Saberhagen. Definitely a very nice cover. Unfortunately, got the pen mark right here. But, not too intrusive, thankfully. And unfortunately will not come out because it's indented into there. It wasn't lightly written on there. It's definitely somebody pushed hard writing that in there. Let's see. Next up by Gaston Leroux. Or Gaston Leroux. The Phantom of the Opera. I mean, come on, how are you going to pass up on that? let's see. Next up is Majestic by Whitley Strieber. Very cool cover. You know, whether you believe his real accounts of, you know, meeting with aliens, you know, that's up to you to decide, but, you know. Let's see, next up, funny enough, is a book that I traded my buddy Corey for a couple months ago, and I finally found one in the wild. And that's Bethany's Sin by Robert McCammon. Beautiful cover. And again, one I've needed in my... that I did need in my McCammon collection for a long time until Corey had traded me, but now I found one in the wild, of course. Let's see. Next up is Dreamer Beware by Ruth Weissman. It's another old school gothic tale here. Next we have All Hallows Evil by Valerie Wolzian. Cool little cover there. Kind of reminds me of, what is it? I think it's called The Manse, or The Manse. I don't know how to pronounce it. M-A-N-S-E. I can't remember the author's name off, but it's got a jack-o'-lantern on the cover and everything. Next up is Neanderthal by John Darton. And, yeah, I have only became recently aware of this. Maybe within the past couple months. But, yeah, pretty psyched to have found it. Let's see. Got some nice step back art there. Pretty cool. Yeah, because I think somebody was looking for a recommendation on, like, caveman horror. And, that was recommended, so... You know, don't ever let anybody tell you horror is just monsters and serial killers. Let's see. Next up is The Amulet by A.R. Moreland. And I love this cover. Nice and embossed. Very glossy. And just, again, simplistic, but very effective. Absolutely love that cover. Let's see. Next up we have Severed Ties by George E. Simpson and Neil R. Berger. We have one of those really nice all-white covers with a splash of red. Kind of like Dead White by Alan Ryan. What is it? The Saviors? And I can't remember the authors on that one. I think they're twins, as a matter of fact. I think there's one other cover that's all white with a dash of red. I can't remember. I want to say Maynard's House, but I know that's not what it is. I just can't remember it off the top of my head. Actually, is it? I think it's actually this one. Dark Channel by Riga. Well, no, because it's more of a gray. I can't remember. But anyway. Let's see. Next up was actually the first book I found when I walked into the place. Again, I wasn't expecting anything, especially not something like this, so I was like, oh, maybe this is a good omen, just, you know, for what I'm going to have today. And that is, Jump Rope by Ruby Jean Jensen. Now, if you're, you know, well-adversed in the collecting world, you know Jensen's work is very sought after, especially Zebra Horror, their Zebra Horror titles. So yeah, seeing this in, again, almost unread condition, it was just like, if I had walked away with only this, I'd have been thrilled. Let's see, next up we have 7 Steps to Midnight by Richard Matheson. Never heard of this by Matheson. I know Hell House, I know I Am Legend, but never heard of this. So definitely excited to add another Matheson to the collection. Ooh, this was another one I was super excited to find. Like, again, didn't think I would ever find it out in the wild. I really thought this was going to be one I'd have to find. I'd have to buy online just because it's like, you know, who the heck's going to have this laying around? But that would be The Hounds of Dracula by Ken Johnson. Beautiful cover. Very, very gorgeous cover. I remember seeing this in Paperbacks from Hell, and I was like, oh, I need that. And now I have it. Ooh, another one. This is another one. Again, like I said, finding anything like this was just not something I'd ever had hopes for. And that's Frenzy by Rex Miller. Again, Rex Miller's books are extremely sought after within the horror community, so finding his stuff out in the wild is a big find, a very big find. And again, in just the condition that it's in, it's like, it's almost like somebody just bought this stuff and never read it. You know, which I guess, you know, for the time when these were coming out would be kind of unheard of, I guess. I mean, I didn't live during the era, so I couldn't say for sure, but anyway, next up, this one just looked super cool. And this is Labyrinth by Eric Mackenzie Lamb. Never heard of the author, never heard of the book. Love the cover art. And I mean, just look at it. Look at the selling point here. Not since Deliverance has there been such a nightmare plunge into a living hell. Sex, horror, plenty of plot. You got my attention. Next up, by Christopher Leach, is The Killing Frost. Awesome cover. Very, very cool. And the concept almost reminds me of a story that I remember watching a video on a while ago about, like, this group of friends that went out during a snowstorm. They left the car and got lost. Like, nobody, like, people found their bodies throughout, but, like, it didn't seem like they died from freezing or something. Like, one guy died in a cabin from starvation, but, like, had a whole bunch of food in the cabin and stuff. So, interesting story if you can find it. Let's see. Next up is Nightglow by Martin James. Very beautiful cover. Nice and embossed, nice and glossy. Alrighty. Let's see. These two for after. Next up we have Dark Seeker by K.W. Jeter. Definitely a nice, cool cover. And I believe K.W. Jeter also wrote Mantis? I believe? What is this? That's L. M's probably going to be up there. Yeah, I believe he also wrote Mantis. Or they wrote Mantis, excuse me. So next, I was actually super excited because this is one I've been after for years now and super easily accessible online, but it's one of those books I really wanted to find in the wild because I just wanted that, you know, sensation of saying, yeah, I found that out in the wild instead of having to buy it online. Not that there's anything wrong with purchasing online, like I always say. Some people just don't have access to used bookstores. And especially with, you know, physical media dying out the way that it is, used bookstores are just kind of becoming a thing of the past. So, no shame if you buy online. Enjoy the hobby. But anyway, what I found, Alien by Alan Dean Foster. Been looking for this forever. And I always see people say, look what I found. I found a copy of this. And I'm just like, why not me? And here I am. But not only that, I found the alternate cover too. So not only did I find the original I was looking for, I found the variant. And what could possibly make that even better? By finding the sequel, Aliens. And funny enough, I found this one first, and I was like, oh, Aliens. I said, I'm excited to find it because I don't have a copy, but why not the first one? I saw that. And then, top it all off, Alien 3 was sitting right next to it. So in one fell swoop, I knocked out the Alien trilogy novelizations, which is just like, it's like a sense of relief and pride, to be totally honest. Like, again, I know Alien is not a super hard to find paperback or anything, but, you know, just having the patience of waiting it out for all these years and finally having a copy that I found out in the wild, it just makes it all worth it, you know? And then on top of that, I found, again, the variation and the 2 sequels on top of it. So I can't complain. Let's see, next up is Second Fire by Robert C. Wilson, excuse me. And, yeah, I only actually found out about this author when I found one of his works in a little free library, which is it behind me? H-I, that's J. Oh, it's in the back row. But, yeah, so, let's see. Next up we have The Case of Charles Dexter Ward by H.P. Lovecraft. Very nice old school edition. Here we go. Next up, we have A Question of Time by Fred Saberhagen. And this is one I've been eyeing online for a little while now. And I'm really happy I didn't pull the trigger on it, because I paid way less for this than what they were asking for. So, very happy about that. Next up is The Okura Mask by Rex Wiseman. I believe this was also featured in Paperbacks from Hell. So, very excited to fill in another gap in that collection. Alrighty, we have Reprisal by F. Paul Wilson, which I think is the third of the Tomb trilogy. I could be... No, the Keep trilogy. I feel like it's the Keep, the Tomb, and Reprisal. I want to say that's the order of this trilogy. I could be wrong, but I'm fairly confident in it. I'm sure somebody will let me know. Let's see. Next up we have The Dreamers by Roger Manvell. And this is the cover I don't have. Which I believe this is the first edition cover, possibly? This is a third printing. Not sure if it's first edition, though. Because I have that over here. That I'm almost positive. Where is it? It is Doomsday, Dracula. Right over there. It's a back row, but I can't get it. Let's see. Next we have A Name for Evil by Andrew Lytles. But yeah. I know these are kind of like definitely some of them, like, I'm pretty sure it's more sought after. Like, these are some of the rarer of the horror books that are, like, yeah, I really don't completely remember. But, yeah, pretty cool to find one of those. Next up is The Sign of the Guardian by John Arthur Long. Again, very simple cover, super effective. That's, like, genuinely really unsettling to me. Like, that definitely just kind of freaks me out. Next up we have The Night Boat by Robert McCammon. Again, this was another one I have been missing for a long time in my McCammon collection. So I'm thrilled to finally get this one off the list. Super excited about that. Excuse me. Next up we have Fangoria Vampires. So it looks like a list of vampires from Fangoria magazine. Yeah, let's see. Vampires in film. Yep, Stephen King, Salem's Lot, Fangs Over France, Dracula, The Lost Boys, Fright Night. Oh, look at that. What's this? Behind the Screens. Oh, that's funny. That's a segment I have on my channel. Haven't done one in a while. I am working on it, though, I promise. Let's see. Next up, we have Conversations with Stephen King. Feast of Fear by Tim Underwood and Chuck Miller. Never heard of it, but definitely excited to have it in the collection now. Let's see. Next, we have Masters of the Macabre. Doesn't say who published it, though. It's Book of the Month Club. Michael O'Mara books. But yeah, let's see. We have Washington Irving, Saki, Charles Dickens, Poe, Robert Louis Stevenson, Mark Twain. Mark Twain wrote horror? Really? Oh, that's news to me. Wow, I'm going to have to check that out. That's completely mind-blowing to me that Mark Twain wrote a horror story. That's crazy. Let's see. And next I have Devils and Demons, a treasury of fiendish tales, old and new, selected by Marvin Kay. Definitely got a nice, cool little, like, almost children's book feel to it that I like a lot. It's a big book. It's got over 50 stories in it. Wow. H.G. Wells. Let's see who else we have in here. Robert Bloch, H.P. Lovecraft. Let's see, Bram Stoker. And no one else I'm super familiar with. But, yeah, so that was all the books I found from the book sale, but I do have two more that I ordered online. First of those is Imp by Andrew Niederman. And this was a really good deal. This usually goes for a lot more money, but I managed to get it for a great price. I love the cover, and yeah, I just couldn't pass it up. And last but certainly not least, I picked up a copy of Silver Scream, edited by David J. Shaw. And just take a look at that cast there. Clive Barker, Robert Bloch, Ramsey Campbell, Robert McCammon, F. Paul Wilson. You know, it has John Skipp and Craig Spector, and, you know, just so many more big names of horror. I feel like this is going to be one that just becomes more and more obscure as time goes on. So I wanted to get it while it was still relatively cheap and easy to find. But yeah. So that's my haul. So yeah, every book was, minus the two I ordered online, $1 each. So overall, I spent a total of about $107, $110 for 110 books. But yeah, so that's going to be the video, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. Again, I apologize for the hiatus. You know, I wasn't feeling too well. And I don't want to make a video when I'm not in the right state of mind. I feel like it's disingenuous to you guys. I wouldn't have my heart in it, and I'm just not somebody that wants to put out fake content, you know? It's just not me. It wouldn't be the right mood, and I wouldn't feel okay putting out videos when I'm not having my heart in it. But, this haul really reinvigorated, the fire in me to make more content. I have a lot more videos planned that I have been working on. I have a review coming, and my major video that I've been doing research on. So lots of stuff to come to the channel. So if you're new, feel free to subscribe. Stay tuned for all the exciting things I have coming. Drop a comment. Let me know what's your favorite book out of my haul that you liked. And yeah, that's going to be it for me tonight, guys. Thank you all so much for watching. I appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, everybody.